Welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News at 8:09. Rob Kirkpatrick and Bernadette Lee, and many of you sitting out on the roads of Acadiana right now listening to us at this point. And how many times do you just say, oh, there's just this one pothole, and every time I feel like it pops my tire.
And
Trust
then,
me, we
and
feel
then
it.
when somebody goes to fix it, people are like, oh, they're running construction.
Exactly.
It's awful.
Transportation Director Dr. Shawn Wilson joins us on the phone. I'm sure you hear both ends of that gripe.
I get it going and coming, brother. I get it going and coming.
We know that you drive from here in our area over to Baton Rouge, so you experience it right with us. You know, you're not immune to it. There's no helicopter that shows up to pick you up every day.
I wish. You know, people say I was doing myself a personal favor. I'm thinking, how would you like to drive through a construction zone for the first 15 miles and the last 15 miles of your day for a full 4-year window? And that's pretty much what we've done.
Yep.
And but, you know, progress takes time, and it's important. And we do what's right when it needs to be done, and we're going to be a better economy and a better state for it.
I will say this. The last 4 miles that you're talking about, I would imagine you're talking about right on the other side of the Mississippi River Bridge, where I-10 has long bottlenecked essentially to one lane, you know, merging on to where 110 comes off. And that is one of those projects that I sit back and when people say we don't do anything about our roads and we continue to have problems, that's one of the projects I point to where something that is so badly needed to alleviate that, because, you know, all it takes is a regular afternoon rush hour, not an accident or anything else to back up that area.
So I will tell you, you are correct. But what happens is we've ignored that issue for so very long, and when you do take an effort to try and undertake it, you know, people have a little lack of confidence. But, you know, that's one of the projects I'm most proud of, because when I became secretary, we began designing that at risk, meaning if we didn't find funding for it, we'd have had to pay for it ourselves. But we were able to get through that project, and it's under construction, at least the Washington Terrace off-ramp. It's under construction. It'll be open later this year. Now, it's not going to fix the one-lane bottleneck, but it should relieve the congestion created by folks trying to cross 3 lanes and be brilliant, which is not very smart.
No.
But that causes a tremendous amount of backup at that bottleneck. And so we're inching our way to progress. And I'll be at joint budget today to start working on a project funding that could spend about $360 to $400 million in that stretch from the bridge to the split, and getting a significant portion of that done. So it's going to take some time.
All right, let's move 100 or so miles west from there and talk about the Lake Charles Bridge, the I-10 Lake Charles Bridge. We
I-10 Lake Charles Bridge.
Yeah, we constantly get calls, and then we know these studies come out and these structural integrity tests that I'm not quite sure where they come from, but they continue to come out. And I think the most recent one was a 6 out of 100, or a score of 6.6 out of 100. What is being done with that? Is there something in the works, or are those stats? I mean, I'm totally open to the possibility that those stats come from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. Actually, I hope that's the case.
What's happening is someone's taking bits and pieces of statistics and reports and making statements about it.
Okay.
And we will tell you, I've closed more bridges since I've been secretary than I've done just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
If its bridge is unsafe, it's going to be closed. That bridge is safe. Is it pretty? No. Is it steep? Yes. Mm-hmm. Is it congested? Yes. Is it designed and built to current capacity? No.
Does it have awesome pistol guardrails? Yes.
It's got awesome. It does have awesome pistol guardrails. And, you know, here's a little aside. It was one of 4 historic bridges. Yeah. We had bridges that had pistols. We have one that had pine cones, one that had acorns, one that had fleur-de-lis.
Gosh, I love
All
that.
of them are gone except that one.
Okay,
so that's when design and infrastructure was attractive, and I'd love to get back to that point in life.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we need to change that bridge out. People always compare that to the bridge that collapsed in Minneapolis. The bridge in Minneapolis was somewhat similar in some of the design elements, but it had fracture-critical elements, which means if that one thing broke, the bridge failed. And that's kind of what happened in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
This bridge is not in a fracture-critical state. It has the redundancies that we need to make sure the bridge is safe. We spent millions of dollars the last 10 or 15 years. We just spent a couple of $1 million doing a joint repair project to make sure we add value to it. Now, when you go out and repair your house or you repair your car, the value in the condition doesn't necessarily increase, but the capacity to continue to operate does. And so what I tell people, when you look at those scores, the bridge is safe. It got the lower score, but because it was repaired, the score is not going to jump up back to an 80 because of a repair.
Yep.
Because it's the nature of infrastructure. It's an old bridge.
Well,
we need to build a new one.
And I'm happy to hear you say that, because I know there is the alternate route you could take to go along, the south side essentially of Lake Charles.
Around 210, correct?
Yeah, 210 is there. And so anytime, we've had folks come here to say, well, no, the state can't do anything because what else do you do with I-10? And I'm very quick to say there is an alternate route if that indeed had to be shut down. And I'm happy to hear that you'd be willing to if you deemed it to be unsafe.
Here's how well thought out this is. Mm-hmm. We're actually in construction now on the 210 bridge, because as much as people complained about the I-10 bridge, the 210 bridge had concrete falling off of it onto boats.
Well, there you
Hello.
go. There you go.
And so we repaired I-10 so that we could repair 210. So when we do get to the point of rebuilding a new bridge, you don't have to worry about 210 going out of service. And so we have a constant process of trying to change our tires on our car of infrastructure while it's moving. Can you imagine doing that? But that's what we do in business, in transportation. And so the hardest thing to tell people is you can't just start and stop anywhere. You have to keep going. You have to maintain what you have. And you have to do it with 80,000 cars a day, possibly.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy work, but because we've neglected this for decades, we've not been able to keep up with this kind of maintenance, which makes it very difficult, makes it very expensive, and very painful for the public.
I think one of the things that's hard for people to understand is who writes the check for what projects. Because I know, everyone wants to gripe at the state because they think we're in the state.
Right.
But some of these are federal roads, and then you have some that are shared by municipalities and everything. All that information is pretty readily available. I have found a lot of it on DOTD, especially with different projects going on. But how do you kind of maintain that so people understand, look, that's not us. The feds aren't giving us the money, or we're not getting it because we have a lack of sales tax revenue.
We are getting money from the feds, and I get half the money I spend. The feds don't spend any actual money on projects. We do all of the expending. And so I will tell you, about half my budget is federal money, but I'm also charged with spending that on the interstates and on state highways. So your gas tax produces about $570+ million a year.
Mm-hmm.
That allows me to collect $816 million a year, somewhere there about this year. So the combined effort, a big portion of that, about $900 million, is going to go to construction. And the rest is going to go to operations and maintenance to take care of things, because the feds spend money on building stuff. They don't take care of it. We have to take care of it with our match. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, you made a good point about not having enough money. Because we aren't collecting enough money, that $800+ million I'm getting from the feds, it could shrink because I don't have enough money to make match.
Because it's the match. Okay. That makes sense.
And that's why we tried to pass a right sizing of our gas tax in 2017. So this year, coming in July 1, if I don't get $60+ million from the surplus budget that we need to recognize that we haven't recognized, if I don't get that, I'm going to leave several $1 million. I'm talking double, possibly triple digits in Washington. So that 800 is going to drop to 6-something, right at 7. If I don't have that $68 million. And then next year, it's going to be even more. And next year, the year after that, it'll be even more. And so in 2017, when we said, hey, guys, there's a fiscal cliff for infrastructure, we meant it because we knew our budget, we knew what we were getting, and the legislature opted not to vote to fix it. And as a result, we're still doing patchwork, and we run the risk of losing money, and conditions get worse. And so at some point, you get what you pay for, and you pay for what you get. And we either don't pay taxes and accept the consequences, or we pay the taxes and make a difference. And I'd rather give people something for what they pay as opposed to listen to them complain about not having something.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who are listening right now. The phone lines are blinking right now because what they are hearing you say is more taxes. How would you respond to that?
Well, what I would say to them, every citizen in this state who has a business or an income if you had to live in today's day on what you were making in 1989, could you survive? Could KPEL survive with advertising dollars today with what you were charging in 1989?
Interesting.
Would Bernie work for KPEL if they paid her what she was getting paid in 1989?
No. What makes you think they're not?
Trick question.
Yes, of course.
Sean, this is an odd industry. I wouldn't compare anything to the broadcasting world.
No, but you're right.
No, but you make, do. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that is a very great
Everything
point.
that you said. So in my business, concrete costs more, steel costs more, asphalt costs more, insurance costs more, retirements cost more, salaries have moderately adjusted, engineering costs more. But guess what? I'm still living on $1989.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had an increase in salary, cost of living for the department. I haven't had benefits increase. If you just at the department now, there's been some salary adjustments.
Yeah.
But the equipment, I still have vehicles that are almost older than me that we have to use. And so if I'm living in 1989, the value of that dollar is 52% less than what it was in 1989. The cost of everything I do has increased by 25, 35, 40%. It's pure business.
Yes, just not moving in the same.
It's just business. Coca-Cola, Disney World. You know what a loaf of bread cost in 1989?
Bread was probably 75 cents? No.
I've got a slide that I use to show people, and where is it? Doggone it! I've got a slide I use to show people where, in 1993 alone, tuition was $1,900. Today it's $9,000.
Ah, okay,
the medium home price in 1993 was $118,000. It's now $315,000. Gas was $1.08 a gallon in 1993. In 2017, it was $2.53.
Yeah.
The gas tax in 1993 was 16 cents per gallon. That same gas tax is the same thing it is today. A movie ticket went from $4 to $8.97. And so when you think about the cost of living, what was a Coke? What was a cell phone? What was a television?
And that's the part that hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. And so when people say I was increasing gas taxes or proposing an increase in gas taxes of 17 cents, guess what that 17 cents was? Had you indexed it and kept up with inflation, it would have been 17 cents more than what it was in 1989.
Wow. We are joined by the Transportation Secretary here for the state, Dr. Shawn Wilson. In these, with these gas tax changes, is there an option, or would it even work, where there's a sunset on it, where it isn't forever, that we can get a jolt of money for 5 years or 10 years, and then we say fix everything?
The answer is you can always sunset taxes, right? When you sunset taxes, you can't bomb them out, so you're cash managing, so you don't necessarily get the value of it. But more importantly, here's the answer to that question. If in 5 years, if we said let's sunset the gas tax in 5 years, we need to say we're going to sunset spending on infrastructure and maintaining it in 5 years. Because why give me money for 5 years if in 5 years and 10 years I know I'm still going to have to spend money?
Because it's like you said, you're fixing a wheel while the
I've got
truck's going down the road.
12,000 bridges in the state of Louisiana. I can't fix all 12,000 of them for life in a certain period of time. So I have to have an ongoing revenue source. So getting back to the compensation of air personalities on the radio, if they gave you a raise for 3 years, what happens in 3 years? You're still going to work.
You still have you still have that question.
So why do we treat government different than what we would want to run in private business? This is one of those things where I agree we should run government with some business principles. Right-size the price. Accept the fact that business is going to continue to invest in that business. We should do the same thing for infrastructure, because I spend a lot of time fixing equipment. I've got 5 sweepers for the entire interstate system in the state of Louisiana.
What? Really?
Yeah, and you complain about litter. Not you, but people complain about litter. It's a huge issue. Well, let me go buy equipment.
Wow.
Let me go pay someone to ride and pick it up if it's important to us. And if it's not important to us, stop complaining about litter.
Man.
Well, we do need to leave it there for time, Dr. Shawn
But-
Wilson. We want to keep this
Yes,
conversation going.
please.
It's such an interesting
Well, I would love to come
conversation.
just very quickly and celebrate some of the success we have on I-10, on Verrat School Road, on I-49. So one day, when I don't want to come to work early,
Ooh.
I'll come straight to the radio station, bring some donuts, and we can talk about
I
what
promise
we've achieved.
there is almost always a breakfast buffet out.
Yes,
Just,
because
just happens.
and we will happily eat
welcome.
those donuts.
All
Okay.
right. Thank
Well,
you,
we'll
guys.
set it up soon. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. Okay.
You
Good-
know,
good talk.
The part
Yeah,
about that
because
is
we
you
didn't
hear
even-
it.
And we didn't even get into time
Yeah,
issue
Yes.
of how long things take. All right, so I'm going to work on setting it up. Maybe we can
Good.
even get it done next week.
Love it. The one thing I know folks are hearing when they hear
Mhm.
that,
Sure.
I mean, I saw it instantly
Mhm.
when talk of the gas tax comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, the phone lines literally all just lit up. And unfortunately, despite the best intentions of someone like a Shawn Wilson, I
Mhm.
think people have such a distrust in
Of
how
government, sure.
statewide
Mhm.
government operates. And then, you know what? That's the crazy part. It's not his fault.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're talking about decades and
Years.
decades and
Yeah,
decades.
God.
So anyway, we appreciate his
Hey,
time this morning.